And now, something we like to call our Sunday Arts Curator's Choice, a close look at a single work of art or one special exhibition chosen from museums and galleries in our area. Please enjoy our selection this week.
I'm Elizabeth Warren. I'm the curator of this exhibition, Masterworks from the American Folk Art Museum. It's the first in our series of year-long presentations celebrating the American quilt making tradition. Quilting as a tradition goes back probably to the Egyptians, but the idea of piecing together parts of fabrics in order to make a bed cover goes certainly back many, many years in Europe. The quilt making tradition that we study in America today probably came here with our English ancestors. That tradition quickly passed on to other immigrant groups. The quilts that you see here are all quilts that were made for best. They were not subjected to the washboard. They were not given hard scrubbing. They were saved for when the minister came to call, for when family friends or guests came to visit your parlor. Over time, women also were able to buy fabrics that were produced specifically for quilt making, specifically for home furnishings projects. And by the late 19th century, you develop a tradition of what's known as show quilts. They weren't heavy enough to sleep on, they were too delicate to sleep under, but they still followed the same tradition of 3 layers of a top, a batting, and a backing, and then joined together by stitching, and it's those stitches that we call quilting. I began studying quilts with Amish quilts. When you look at them, you will see that they are all geometric. There are no representational patterns on them. This was a law among the Amish women in the community. They cannot have anything representational in their art, but they wanted color, beauty, love in their homes, and I think this was an Amish woman's way of bringing that into her house. And people always think of the Amish as dark and somber. I always say, open the coat, open the door to the house, and inside you will see bright color, bright design, and what the Amish women can do using only geometric patterns is unbelievable. And then the stitching that they use is renowned for its meticulousness, for the tiny stitches that they can get into a quilt. And often if you look at those stitches carefully, you'll see that they may have quilted a basket, a flower, a grapevine. And I think that was the Amish woman's way of bringing something of nature into her home where she couldn't do it in an applique, she couldn't do it in a pattern on the top of the quilt, but she could put it in her tiny stitches into the heart and soul of the quilt. One of the earliest quilts in the exhibition, and one that certainly represents American quilt making, particularly in New England, is what's known as the Harlequin Medallion quilt. This quilt is sewn of brightly colored pieces. The quilt was probably made in the early 19th century, and after all these years, those colors may be as bright today as they were when they were made. These fabrics were given a glaze probably by pressing them under heavy weight and intense heat. They're a type of wool fabric known as calamanco. Another one of my favorite quilts in the collection is Jessie Telfair's Freedom Quilt, made in Georgia. This is one of a number of quilts that are almost alike that she made after she was refused the opportunity to vote in the 1960s. She was working as a cook, and she lost her job when she tried to register to vote. So in her frustration and her way of telling her story, she began to make these freedom quilts. Because the American Folk Art Museum has such an incredible collection of quilts, we want to bring out as many of these masterpieces as we can. So we've divided the exhibition here at our 53rd Street location in 2. You will see 35 quilts now, another 35 equally amazing examples starting in the spring. So you have to come see both, because that's the only way you're going to really experience the wonderfulness of the American quilt making tradition and our collection. Everybody also has to come in March because for 6 days, the American Folk Art Museum, in cooperation with a private collector here in New York, is putting on an extravaganza of 650 quilts. I can't think of any place in recent memory where that many quilts has been in one place at one time. And it's all open free to the public. The quilts are red and white, but no two are alike. We are examining the imagination of American quilt makers who could take two colors and turn out an infinite variety of patterns. And that's what the exhibition is called. It's called Infinite Variety, 300 Years of American Red and White Quilts.